Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your host.
Welcome to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I am a catalyst for positive change in communities and in businesses. And for over 2 decades, I've inspired leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, faith, and a commitment to their well-being. I'm joined today by my colleague, Kimberly Danielle. Kimberly, it's good to see you.
Hey, Stephen. Good to see you too. I am Kimberly Danielle, as Stephen said, and I am a communication strategist, a coach, and community builder who comes from generations of faith-driven leaders and entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us all to contribute to the common good. Now, everyone, the last several episodes, we have been talking about money, but from the place of capital. You've heard from some VCs at some firms, and we also talked about sales. We started a conversation about sales. So you've kind of getting this picture of going down a sales path, going down a path of exploring various forms of capital, but we want to go back to the sales conversation. And specifically, we want to talk with a guest about sales because in last season, we did not have anybody to come in who is an expert or who works in the field who talks about sales. And that is such an important skill to have for entrepreneurs, to not just be relying on capital, but to be able to actually talk about what it is you're doing, the problem you're addressing, and connect with your customers in ways that build a platform for sustainability and growth of your business without having to ask other people for money. Well, at least people who are not your customers. So we are excited to have this conversation today with someone who can share insights and valuable tips that just might help you on the entrepreneurial journey. So we are inviting Stephen Steers into this conversation today. This is another Stephen. So I know for me, if I say Stephen in the conversation today, maybe I need to say Stephen S, Stephen L. because of the co-host and our guests. But Stephen Steers, he has helped over 1,000 companies across 40 countries, over 40 countries, figure out how to grow with clarity, confidence, and connection. Stephen S. is a globally recognized consultant, keynote speaker, and the author of Superpower Storytelling. He's also the creator of context selling, a method rooted in the idea that sales isn't about pushing. It's about listening, learning, and connecting through stories. And this is important because Stephen and I had a previous conversation and we were talking about how sales can come off as so cringy. And this is not what he focuses on. You don't get that cringy effect. This is not what it should even be about. He's worked with teams at Google, Nike, HEC, Paris Business School, and the Entrepreneurs Organization. But more than anything, Stephen's on a mission to teach what schools don't. How to sell with confidence, how to stand in your values, and how to tell stories that don't just close deals, but open relationships. So we're so glad to have you with us here today, Stephen. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly and Stephen. And also, as we were talking about just before we started recording, Stephen spells his name correctly. So shout out to your parents for doing you the right service. Thank you all for having me. It's an honor to be here. And great introduction.
Well, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Starting off, I want to hear about what is sales, especially as opposed to raising capital, just to start off as a foundation for folks who are joining this conversation. Maybe they haven't listened into other episodes where we talked about sales, but what is sales from your perspective and how did it become your particular niche, especially when we're talking about helping founders who are building their businesses?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So have y'all ever made food for your friends, for your family, for anybody else? Right? There's a certain order of ingredients that need to happen for it to taste good. If you put the ingredients in the wrong order or miss an ingredient, you're going to have a lot of pissed off people at the barbecue. Sales is the most foundational element of anything. And I think, unfortunately, for the times we're in, we see all this glory on social media about people who raise money and how that's like, oh my goodness, my company's been funded. Well, technically, you got some money. Now you owe people money. Let's call about what it is. You didn't just get a check and now you're good. You owe that person hopefully 10x of what they've invested in you. That's what they expect from you. So you better get selling. Let's talk real talk here straight ahead. So anyway, the difference between, so what is sales? Sales is literally, in my opinion, the exchange of goods or services in effort to help your customer achieve a certain outcome, hopefully for a significant profit. If you want to raise capital, you want to raise significant capital, meaning you want to scale a business, you need good systems inside of that business that make an investor say, hey, this is a real business. And so if you want to have a big business, a big exit, live all that great lifestyle, I support you. I want to do that as well. But you need to have a good system. An investor buys the system. They buy you, but they're looking at your numbers to say, oh, look, it costs them this much money to acquire a customer. It costs them this much money to fulfill the services or goods that they have. And here's the profit they have. If this is what they do right now, and I add this amount of millions of dollars to it, we can potentially scale it up to this size, which means my win off of this company is going to be this. Therefore, it's worth investing in. So if you don't sell or don't know how to sell, I think you probably should invest some time in learning. But raising capital is just a way to be able to hopefully sell more because you now got to pay somebody off. So the best fundraising, best capital raise is from your customers. Shout out to John Pierre Adichie who says that quote. I love that one a lot.
That's great. So you work with like more than 1,000 companies. So what is one pattern that you see in terms of founders who struggle with sales?
I think everybody struggles with sales. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I've been in it over 10 years and some days I struggle. Like it's not the easiest thing to do, to put your value proposition in front of people, get rejected. Things don't close as quickly as you want. It's not an easy thing. But I'd say for anybody who's thinking about it, let's take a couple steps back here. If you are in business and you're listening to this podcast, hopefully, if I was to ask you the question, hey, does your solution solve a real problem? You would say, yes, it does. And then you would say, are you helping people when you are giving them the solution? And you would say, yes. And if that's the case, then that should be the first thing in your mind to say, hey, it's worth telling people about this because I can help them have a better outcome, right? What we sell at the end of the day is we sell outcomes. No matter what product or service you have, if you can't explain the outcome someone will get from investing in it, you're lost. So as far as outcomes, if you're listening, wait, what is an outcome? So I call it the magnificent 7 reasons why people buy. 4 of them are for B2B. So if you sell to a business, they're probably going to invest in your product or service for one of the following 4, if not all of the following 4 reasons. First, you're going to help them make more money. Second, you're going to help them to save money. Third, you help increase their efficiency. And fourth, you help mitigate their risk. If you can quantify or tell a story around how you can do each of these things or how you have done each of these things, now you have something that whoever you're talking to can then tell others in the organization exactly what you do with clarity and how it's going to affect the bottom line for them. If you sell to people, like maybe your social impact, or maybe you are a trainer, whatever it is, the reasons people buy things are the following 3. They want better health, more wealth, and stronger relationships. So if you can phrase how what you do affects those underlying outcomes, now you have people listening and you're speaking the language that they want for the outcomes they're looking for.
That's good. That's really good.
That is good.
I want to build off of this, but first I want to go back a little bit just to also understand how this became your area of focus for your work.
Yeah, it happened in a couple of different phases. So I was a kid in New York City, didn't grow up with much. My parents are immigrants from Jamaica, and they gave us everything they could. And, I still wanted more candy. So I needed to figure something else out to be able to get candy. That was honest, of course. And so I would buy stuff at garage sales and flip it, or I would cut grass, or just, those types of things were just always I always have a little side hustle going, no matter what else I was doing. And fast forward a few years after I graduated college, I was able to get a job in the construction business. And I was a infield and office project manager, meaning I would go onto site and get reports and write down when things were broken so we could get paid, et cetera, et cetera. And this is in New York City, and we're building big high rises, really big buildings, 40, 50 stories. They take 3+ years to build most of them. And on one of the buildings, I was on it from when it was a hole in the ground until it was completed. And I was walking through doing my punch list. Building's basically done. And there's a $75 million apartment in there. And I walk all the way down from the 45th story building with just jeans and a hoodie on and sneakers with my foreman. We're hanging out, we're having laughs, writing our list down. And we get into the construction entrance. We're having a chat, and he taps me on the shoulder and is like, hey, let's go to lunch. And I take one step forward, and a cement block falls right where I was standing. Literally missed it by that much. And I'm staring at this block, and my guy, Kenny's his name, and I tell this story somewhat often, and he's like, Papa, you're here for something. Not everyone gets a chance like that. I was like, oh, okay. You're probably right. And I'd lost my appetite. I wasn't hungry anymore. And I just went on a long walk, and I came to the conclusion very quickly, you're going to die one day. I think all of us are. But if I'm going to die one day, I want to at least die having given an effort towards something I've always wanted to do. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Always thought about having the freedom to kind of live the life I wanted. I knew I'd have to work for it. But I was like, well, what skills do I have? I'm decent with people, maybe sales. And that's how kind of where I started to get into sales. And so I went on a hardcore events tour of New York City, going to 4 to 5 events a week, every week for months. And then just networking and getting clear at what I wanted and asking questions and getting introduced to people. And eventually got started in the software business at the bottom of the barrel, doing the cold calling, all the horrible work people are afraid of. I was afraid of it too. Quick story on that. My first day in sales, they just sent me a list and they said, get us some meetings. And I said, how? And they're like, figure it out. And I was going to have to cold call. And I'd never cold called in my life. And I literally went to the bathroom because I was going to throw up. I was so nervous and scared of it. Eventually, I figured some things out. There was no training involved in that company, continued on for a couple more years, and then eventually got laid off at that company. And to answer your question specifically how I got into the niche, I got laid off on a Monday. And the best thing about getting laid off on a Monday is you have the whole rest of the week to be sad about it. So I go in for this Monday morning meeting with my VP. And whenever you get a surprise meeting on your calendar in sales, it's not a good thing. If they didn't be like, hey, let's schedule something, I already knew what was happening. So I get in, and then the woman from HR comes in, and I was like, all right, I know what's happening now. And I leave the office from there, and they go take me to my desk to clean it out. And I see one of the founders, and I go to shake his hand, and he blows me off. I was like, whoa, this is nuts. And so I leave, I say my goodbyes to a couple people, and I'm walking back to the J train. I lived in New York City at the time. And as I'm walking back to the train, I hear my phone go off, and it's an email from that founder. And his email says something to the effect of, sorry, I spilled coffee on myself, so I wasn't present at that particular moment. But I wanted to let you know you got the short end of the stick here with regard to territory management and vertical. Too little, too late for sure, but I hope you had a great experience nonetheless. I think you'll be a great seller should you choose to continue in that capacity. Good luck with whatever comes next. Now, so many ways that's a horrible email to receive because it's like, wow, you knew this wasn't going well and you didn't do anything? You're a founder. And that's kind of where the seed started to say, this guy has a company, he hires people to sell for his company, he doesn't bother to put any effort in to make sure that they have what they need to be successful. And that's the seed that got me up in the morning. It's like, this shouldn't exist. So in essence, it's my niche because I want to be the help I didn't have when I was starting out. And so that's where when it's founders, it's like, oh, you have a great idea. One of my friends, his name is Zev Siegel. He's one of the founders of Starbucks. And he's like, entrepreneurs are usually start a business because they're good at something. That something is not usually business. And so when I'm working with folks and I see it, it's like you have great ideas. You don't know how to necessarily put them in a package that people can understand and how to get it out there to the world. So putting all that stuff together with my own like, I'm so mad about this. I want to make sure this mentality doesn't exist. That's kind of how I got into that niche, and it's where I've kind of been since.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. And, what it makes me think about is you say that stories close the sale, never the conversation. So break that down for us, because you just had me wanting to know more. Like, man, Kimberly.
Well, that's it right there, right? A story is, let's go back to it, right? You mentioned earlier, Stephen, that one of the things you talk about is faith, right? Why is one of the best-selling, or some of the best-selling books in the entire world, religious books? We talk about the Bible, the Quran, maybe the Torah or other things. They speak in parables because the lesson is embedded in the story. You don't have to think about the lesson. You can just remember what happened. And so that extends to everything else in life. And then when you look at it scientifically, like what happens in the brain, we release chemicals in the brain that help us build trust with people when we tell stories. So if you're in a selling scenario, which I understand can feel awkward and tense and strange, and you want something from them and you don't know if they want what you have, I get it. I've been there many times. But the key here is a story helps you relate to a person and helps a person relate to you. It brings the context, right? And so the whole reason you tell a story is to better help somebody else tell their own. And if you walk in with that way, plus with a mind of service, right? Like you already acknowledge, if you're listening, that your product or service helps people and it's going to help them get to good outcomes. Talk about that. Don't sell me on this feature, this widget, this other thing. Talk to me about the things you've done and share those stories, because as you said, Stephen, it makes me want to learn more. One quick note here. I'm sure we'll get to more of this. Advice for founders: who you are is without a doubt the most interesting thing about what you do. Let me meet you first, and then I'll be much more curious about what else you do and how else you got to what you're doing and what else that can do for me. People get it very backwards. And I think that's a missed opportunity, especially in early stage, especially if you're working in social impact or everything else. I need to meet you first, because everybody else is just trying to sell me stuff.
All of that. And I think you just proved that in sharing your own story and then listening to Stephen L. say in response, listening to your story made me want to learn more. And that is what happens, because yes, everything you just said. And it's so interesting because when I'm out working with organizations, in another capacity, the first thing they tell me is what they do and how they do it, versus the why behind it and their own story. So the storytelling, I mean, I'm an avid believer that storytelling can be transformational, powerful. It's the source of and the root of human connectedness across generations, across time. And we see that also, in the religious books that you've named and you've mentioned. So you started to share some of the things, focused on storytelling, and how that can help people founders feel maybe a little bit more confident sharing who they are. And they don't necessarily know how to sell, quote unquote, sell themselves or tell their story. There's some founders who aren't confident in that. There's some founders who may be like you and want to go in the bathroom and vomit in the first time that they're trying to approach selling in some way, shape, or form. So can you talk more about advice for how they get started, how they continue to build their confidence over time?
Big question here. I read somewhere that to build self-esteem, you must do esteemable acts. So everything is a foundational element in and of itself. So you want to be more confident? Start off telling yourself that you are more confident, right? You're going to believe. Like, I always correct a lot of people when I'm on calls with them. They're like, oh, I'm really bad at this. I'm terrible at this. Instead, say I'm working on getting better at. Because your brain will believe you. It will believe you. It's going to do exactly what you tell it to do. It is a tool and it's a machine like most other things, but it needs the right type of input in order to get the right type of output. So start there. I'm working on getting better at sales. That's the first thing. Second thing I would say is, if you're scared of it, break it down into smaller pieces that you can be less scared of. So I want to think about this, the easiest way people can take action on it. Get more confidence in telling people what it is that you do. And when I say what it is that you do, I don't mean, oh, we solved this problem for this person. Say it in more of a story format. Like, we've helped Kimberly and Stephen to increase the listenership of their podcast so that they can do good on a massive scale. This is how much we did it by. Tell that type of story, because I think what's different here, and I think the world is changing immensely with AI and everything else, and there's a lot more noise. Mm-hmm. The word authenticity is very much overused today, but that authenticity, for lack of a better word choice here, is signal. And if I know who you are, I'm going to care more about what you do. So I would start just coalescing and understanding what that is. And I think I read about it in my book, but there's 3 stories you already have right now. You don't need to go get them. You don't need to learn about them. These are who you are. They are your mission, vision, and your milestones. So for example, mission, a lot of people say, this is what we're doing, but I say, why? Okay. So you asked me, how did this become my niche? I gave you exact inciting moment where I was like, man, I got to do something about this. I was pissed. I was emotional. And hopefully I've helped the listeners feel some type of emotion when they felt slighted or misrepresented or whatever it was. Give me that, because that's how I know you have real passion for what you're doing. You didn't have to tell me you have passion. You showed me you had passion. And so if you get clear on those reasons around what you're actually doing, and that's how you tell people about what you do, you're going to pull people towards you and grow an audience of your own. Again, maybe not be huge, but it'll be enough to get you started and feeling confident that what you're doing actually solves a problem for people. Instead of saying, buy this widget. It's a cool widget. It's the best widget. Nobody cares. Not yet, anyway.
That's good. That's good.
But wait a minute. The listeners want to hear the other two. You said vision, and what was the other one?
Mission, vision, and milestones.
So what is, if your mission is why, what is your vision and what is your milestone?
Is what, thank you for the question. Your vision is what happens when your mission is complete. So we want to help 5,000 underrepresented founders raise $1 million in capital in the next decade. Right? That's a tangible, somewhat measurable goal. And the larger that is the easier it is for people to pay attention. Because again, you can have some haters, but they're like, wow, what a bold statement. How are you going to do that? Creates curiosity. And then milestones are how we got here. So these are potentially challenges that you've experienced on the way to building this thing. And or they could be challenges your customers experienced before they came to you, and then how you solve those problems. Again, you don't got to be Steve Jobs here or a Griot or anybody else. You just have these types of things that can be very simple in the way you do them, but it's all about where you deploy them. And that becomes the commercial for your business instead of being like, I'm selling widgets.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Danielle.
And I'm Stephen Lewis, and we're the co-founders of Do Good X.
If you are building a purpose-driven business and generating $60,000 or more annually, this fall, we have created something just for you. It's an experience designed to help you scale with clarity and support.
And so from November 6th through 8th, we're gathering a small group of underestimated, impact-focused social entrepreneurs for an intimate weekend here in Atlanta.
This is the launch of Do Good X's mastermind community, starting with this in-person retreat. This is a chance to really decelerate from the hustle, reconnect with your inner wisdom, and align with mentors and tools to grow your business in ways that honor your values, but also your well-being.
And you'll walk away with renewed clarity, expert insights, real relationships, and an action plan to scale your impact without burning out.
And for those of you who are ready to go deeper, you'll be invited into our 6-month mastermind experience, a coaching and education journey rooted in purpose, faith, and community.
Spots are limited, and we invite you to dogoodx.org/mastermind community to learn more and apply today.
We can't wait to welcome you to Atlanta in November.
So you talked a little bit about, a couple of things that you learned when you was kind of thrown out there to start selling for the first time.
To the wolves, man.
Particularly, like cold calling. And like, how do you get people to return your email or return your phone call in terms of that? But what would you say are like 1 or 2 mindset shifts that you teach and help founders to move from avoiding sales because of that fact to actually really warming up to it, if not enjoying it?
Well, again, I can't promise you'll enjoy it. I can't promise that. I can hopefully make it a little bit more fun. I think it's as you say, it's a mindset. So it's one of them is what we just kind of talked about earlier, which is you're moving from a place of service. You're not moving from a place of sales. So solve, don't sell. And so if it's a problem that, again, bigger picture stuff, we would need many workshops and much more time to talk through this. But if you can quantify through, for example, we're talking about business to business, make money, save money, increase efficiency, mitigate risk. If you're able to quantify the size of the problem as it exists in a company and tell a story about how you helped somebody to solve that problem with a quantifiable result, you're not really selling, you're just talking facts. And so when you put it in that perspective and package it that way, it's much, much easier for you to feel less afraid because it's like, oh, like I have some, look what we did. So I'd start there. Start with we're moving from a place of service. The second thing is it's all habits. So look back at anything else in your life that you've achieved up to this point. Did you play basketball when you were a kid? Remember when you couldn't dribble? Maybe you still can't. But remember when you couldn't dribble the basketball at all, and then you couldn't shoot a layup, and then eventually one day it clicked, or you couldn't ride a bike, and then you could ride a bike? It's all practice and how you show up. So do it every day. It's going to be scary. You might throw up in the bathroom after your first call, but then you made your first call, and now it's gone. And then it's all up from there. So I would also say fail faster. You probably heard that before. Just get that first one done. You're going to mess up along the way. It's natural. But one big mistake I see a lot of people make, and I would hope you would avoid, is don't scale broken systems. So quick on that. Everybody's talking about how AI agents are going to make things so much easier. It streamlines this process and that process. Well, you probably don't even have a process, so you have nothing to scale. So stop it. Let's start right here. Don't scale something that you know doesn't work, because then you don't know what to fix, which puts you further behind. You need to build a solid foundation of knowing who your customer is, what problem you solve for that person or people, and then how you can affect a change. And once you have that, and you know what channels those people hang out on, are they on LinkedIn? Is it email? Is it over the phone? Is it at conferences? Is it on podcasts? If you don't know any of that stuff, you have no business buying a tool to make it easier just because you're afraid of it. It's not going to help you. It's just going to set you back, and you're going to spend a bunch of money doing it. And to go back to our first question versus sales and capital, no one's going to invest in a company that doesn't have a system that they know works. So those would be the ones I would say, like, start with what you got to know what works or doesn't work if you're going to build anything. And again, it sucks some days. It's really hard. It's annoying. It's a lot of soul searching. But when the time comes, if you are going to raise capital or otherwise, you can speak from a place of authority about what got you here. And then further, even bigger picture stuff. If you're going to build a company, you're probably going to want to have people work for you at some point. And if I can't trust that you built something that works, I can't trust your leadership. So you cause so many early problems for yourself by trying to just get rid of the hard part and not understand what causes it to work. I'm not saying don't get rid of it, but know enough to be educated about having a conversation with somebody who can do it better than you to set the expectation. Because otherwise, you're in for a long, long ride that will end way faster and way more disastrously than you think.
That was a lot. That was a lot. This is good. This is good. And I hope you all are listening in, because you've mentioned how sales is not only related to storytelling, but related to systems, related to leadership, related to mindset, all of these things. This is really good. Another question I want to ask, because a lot of people tuning into our podcast and what we focus on at Do Good X are founders who are doing good, focused on social impact, social good. They're social entrepreneurs. So for those founders who are focused on some area of social impact, is there any way that they need to approach sales differently than a typical founder who's, not necessarily in this particular field of entrepreneurship? And if so, how?
Great question. I'm going to give you the consulting answer is it depends. But here's where I think I would differentiate it just slightly. I think for founders who are in social impact, storytelling is probably 50 times more important for you. For example, social impact already has its own emotional connotation to it. So, and the importance, and then another reason I say storytelling is really important is 95% of our decisions are made in the subconscious, which means the animal brain is what decides yes. And then we put that 5% of logic to be like, you know what? Cool. I'll do this. If you can create an emotional space for somebody, you can create.
Hold on, Stephen. Rewind that for our listeners. Make sure they get that again. Because, some things have to be caught, can't be taught. Say it again, brother.
95% of our decisions are made subconsciously in the animal brain. And we back it up with that 5% of logic, which means you need to create an emotional canvas for somebody if they're going to make a decision about you. So if you are not properly leveraging stories in social impact, you are losing 100%, a guarantee. So for example, how could a social impact founder leverage storytelling or put themselves out there to be more conscientious for what they sell? Talk about how you help Consuela and her son Mauricio do X, Y, or Z when they weren't able to before. And talk about how people who donate to your thing or interact with it are going to help families like this. Like, name the people, name the situation, name the circumstance, and make it live. I love quotes. One other one I read about in my book, and it's kind of just inspires me a lot, is it's by a Greek philosopher by the name of Horace. I know that sounds crazy, but that's his actual name, Horace. And he says, you need change only the name and the stories about you. So if you are talking about social impact and having made a social impact, name the people, because I probably know someone with that name if it's not my own name. I know someone who's experienced that. I know someone who has a kid with that problem or a family who's experiencing that similar situation. Name those things, make me feel something. And then when you make an ask, I'm in a space. I might not say yes, but I will read to the end or listen to the end. And I may know somebody who I can send your way because you built that trust by knowing exactly who we are, what we do, and how you can affect that change. And so I'd say, yeah, man, get your stories out. That's the most interesting thing about what you do. That is by far. Please leverage them.
Man, that's great. And so much wisdom that you're offering here in this podcast. And so if you're listening, we hope that you are picking up just some really good, important life lessons, but jewels in the journey of an entrepreneur. We're going to shift now to our resource roundup session. And this is where we gather tools and tips and resources that can help entrepreneurs build strong and sustainable businesses. So with that, I'd like to ask you, what's one practical sales tool or tactic you recommend that founders can start using today?
Big one, and I can send it to folks, to your listeners here. If you go to my website, stevensteers.com, that's Steven with a PH.com/podcast, there is something I call the OCGC call script template. If you go on the phone and call people and talk to people and qualify people via phone, this is an essential tool that's going to help you do that with confidence, have it not feel salesy, have it be a conversation, and set you up with all the right increments to win and move a deal forward. I promise. So that would be the thing I would say would be the easiest thing to get started with today.
That is a very practical tool. So make sure you go to
yes.
So go to Steven with a PH, steers.com/podcast for that. We'll also put that in the show notes for you all to easily be able to go back and find. So Steven, what's your go-to framework for crafting a story that builds relationships and closes deals?
Yes. There's a keynote that I give. I call it 4 questions to ask before you tell a story that sells. So I'll give you the very abridged version. These are 4 questions you need to be able to answer for yourself and for your business if you're going to be able to tell any story. Because stories are cool, but they have to have some place that they land if they're going to work. Question 1, what is at stake? So think about this as what hangs in the balance if people don't change? Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? What happens if no action is taken? Create that canvas for me. And now we have a context for what we're talking about together. And the better you understand what's at stake for the people you sell to or want to serve, the clearer they're going to label and say, all right, this person knows what they're talking about and they know how to talk to me properly. Once you've labeled that, the next question, question 2 is, what do your prospects want to learn or achieve about the thing that's at stake? So for example, what steps can they take to be successful? What should they be avoiding? What should they be thinking about? This helps frame a way that they can take that concern or care that they have, and you could teach them something in a new perspective around how to approach that thing that's hanging in the balance for them in their lives or their businesses. Question 3 is, how do you want your prospects to feel? You remember, 95% of decisions are made subconsciously. How are you labeling the emotion you want people to feel? Do you want them to feel angry? Hopefully not, but in case that's one you want. FOMO. Do you want them to feel unprepared, scared? Whatever that thing is, label that, and the appropriate story is going to attach itself to that and help them be in an emotional space to help make a decision. Question 4, and this is where everybody gets it wrong when they do storytelling, in my opinion. What do you want your prospects to do next? Confused people don't buy. You need to have a process for selling. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of how your prospects buy things. Shout out to Scott Sambucci for that quote. You need to tell people what to do with the information. So once they know what's at stake, you've taught them what they need to learn or achieve, you label the emotions, you are then telling them, hey, if you want to learn more about how to solve this problem, take X action. Download this lead magnet. Book a call with us for this assessment. Download our podcast. Whatever that is, tell people what to do. And those would be the 4 questions I would use to start on your storytelling journey so that you know where to apply a story in a way that's going to be effective to the people you want to serve.
It's good. So what are 1 or 3 resources that you recommend for founders who want to get better at selling?
Okay. Oof, this one's a big, there's so many, man. There's so many. There's a couple of books I like. So super quick on that. I've been going back into source material for sales gurus because you see all these folks on Instagram, this, that, and the other, and a lot of it's regurgitated, but where did they get it from? And so I've been going back and forth, back, like to the OGs who were just doing it for the love of teaching, not for fame. So there's a guy named Tom Hopkins who wrote a book called Master the Art of Selling. And he's famous for selling a house a day for an entire year at the age of 26. So this guy knows what he's doing. And that book is instrumental I think, in just framing a lot of the psychology around selling from someone who's been really successful at doing it. So that's one. Startup Selling by Scott Sambucci is another great book. It talks specifically about just really early stage work in selling and founders. And I'd probably say my book too, right? Superpower Storytelling. Check me out. It's really simple, applicable stuff that you can apply today. Those would be the 3 I would say.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, for you listeners, we'll make sure we put those resources in the show notes for you to easily go and find. And if you are enjoying this conversation, we invite you to go to dogoodx.org to find resources and listen to other conversations with purpose-driven guests and knowledgeable guests who are dropping jewels and gems like Stephen. And while you're there, you can join our Do Good X LinkedIn group and connect with other entrepreneurs who believe in doing good, specifically through their business. And now we're going to go into our last segment here, which we always enjoy, and it's off the cuff. And so we'll just ask you, Stephen S., a series of questions that we haven't provided you with. And we just want you to give it your first thought, no overthinking, and just go with your gut.
I can't overthink. I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I do. It's half the job.
So what has been your greatest lesson so far on your entrepreneurial journey?
It's way more difficult than you think, and you must ask for help. I was a little arrogant, not arrogant, but I was like, oh, I can figure this out. I can do this. And sure, I figured a lot of it out. But man, you need a sounding board of people who are going to call you out on the mess that you're going to make sometimes, and people you trust to let you know that you're not doing something correct, or somebody to praise you on those lonely days. Get some help, man.
That's good.
What is one of your go-to practices or rituals to slow down, to center, and to connect with yourself?
So I'm kind of a nuts person in the fact that I have a 2-hour morning routine. So first thing I do in the morning is I spend time with me. So I meditate for half an hour. I write in my journal for a half an hour, and then I study, whether it's coding or I do stand-up comedy too. So like I do all of that stuff in the morning and start my day there, because it's like I've taken care of me, therefore I can create space for others. So that centers me. if I get a crazy stressful day, then I go to the gym and I get out of my head and get into my body.
How has your faith shaped the way that you lead or build your business?
It has taught me it's not on my time and I need to be more patient, which is the hardest lesson of all to learn sometimes. It's like, you can't really, I had a conversation a little earlier today. Someone was like, I don't know how I got here. I was like, I bet it lines up in reverse. And he's like, you're probably right. And I think it always will line up in reverse, even though it seems like we went all these weird ways. So I think just patience. And I'm still learning it.
How do you navigate challenges and build your own resilience?
Yeah, this is a big one. I'll take you back, really quick story. During COVID, I called some of the smartest people I know, mentors, other folks, and just asked them for advice. And I was like, hey, like, here's where I'm at. Here's what I have. Like, what would you do in my situation? And they're like, I don't know. You just got to figure it out. That's what we're doing. We're just trying to figure it out. And again, at that time, everybody's going through their own thing. I'm grateful that they even took time with me. But just like with self-esteem, you must do esteemable acts. With resilience, you must do acts that demonstrate your resilience. So, for example, I left my city and my country during one of the craziest times in the world and moved somewhere else because I was betting on myself. And so if you're starting a company, in one way, you've already done the most resilient thing. You've bet on yourself that what you think, an idea you had and put on paper, is going to generate income, potentially generational wealth, great funding, great stories, or everything. So do that again. Just do that again. Trust in yourself, trust in whatever power above you that you pray to or you claim, and go for it. Because at the end of the day, worst case, you might be able to get on the Do Good podcast and tell your story.
How much of your success do you attribute to your faith versus your own grit, will, and hustle?
Well, I didn't get any of the grit, will, and hustle on my own. So I think it was bestowed on me. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse some days, but it's something that I'll say this. You remember a lot of the lessons you get as a kid through some failures or somebody lecturing you or whatever. But I think I've been able to call on a couple of those things every once in a while and just remind myself of it's not on my time as much as I want it to be on my time. And that, while not the easiest meal to have, is still one with nourishment in it if I let it be.
Complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, businesses and communities will be or are more able to do
what their biggest purpose is, with style, a clarity, and panache.
Well,
we're freestyling up here.
With that, Stephen, I'm going to say it has been a joy and a delight to journey with you in this conversation. There's so much that you have offered us and our listeners, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly and Stephen. It's a pleasure. I look forward to continue our conversations.
Yes. Thank you so much, Stephen S. And, there is one thing that I wish we had time to get into that we didn't, but also it's not the area of focus of this podcast, but I would have loved to hear some of your stand-up comedy.
I know, that's what I was thinking about.
Some other time. Also, shout out to Abe in the background. We appreciate you.
Yes. Yeah. Abe is a great producer, and also he is one of our he's like the cheerleader in my back pocket all the time. Yeah. So I appreciate you, Abe. So thank you so much, Stephen. And for you all listening in, again, if this conversation sparks something for you, we also invite you to follow this podcast and leave us a quick rating. It can help other entrepreneurs on the journey to discover conversations like this that might really help them and give them some practical tools and tips. So if you know someone who might benefit, you can also share it with them directly. But anything you might offer just helps others to find us and to gain some other insights. But until next time, where we hope you will join us, be well and do good.
Do good.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.